Joined now by our Canucks reporter, one half of the Rink Wide duo with Andrew Wadden. They were busy last night after a 3-2 overtime win in St. Louis. It's Mr. Jeff Paterson here with Sekeres and Price. How we doing?
Yeah, doing all right. Looking forward to the Boston Bruins. I don't know if the Canucks are, but the way that Bruins team is playing, I don't know if you guys caught any of that Seattle-Boston game last night was incredible. And I know we're going to talk Canucks in a sec, but Bruins down in Seattle, place was buzzing. That felt like a playoff game last night for some reason, and Kraken are going to get there soon enough, but that Bruins team is something else, and we're going to get a chance to see them firsthand at Rogers Arena on Saturday.
Well, I get it. I mean, Seattle's starting to get excited. You're going to the playoffs, and that's the biggest dog in the block this year, the Bruins, with what they've done. It's been an incredible season, and I just hope people can get to the game and then get home safely tomorrow, Jeff. With the snowstorm that they're calling for. So we'll see if the building can have the same amount of energy. And usually a hated opponent. Normally people like to go there and get all over Brad Marchand, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, speaking of Seattle, guys, this sort of is reminiscent of, the spell before the All-Star break. Canucks looked very good against Chicago. Was that night one of Rick Tocchet?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The next night they face a much better Kraken team and get waxed. It's one thing to look good against St. Louis. It does make you wonder, though, what tomorrow night looks like for the Vancouver Canucks, particularly if Schenn is still out and the trade is consummated. It has the potential to be a similar disparity here. Again, a 5-2 win over Chicago, a 6-1 drubbing at the hands of the Kraken. Are we about to see the same thing?
Yeah, and look, the Blues are bad. Just ask Craig Berube. Did he tear a strip off his own team? But they are, and they have 3 wins in their last dozen games. And you're right, Rick Tocchet's 12 games into this now. He's 5-5-2, and I was just looking at the results. 4 of the 5 wins are against non-playoff teams, and the one team above the playoff bar is Bo Horvat's Islanders, and they're a wild card team. So, yeah, some perspective is needed that the Canucks are a 500 team under Tocchet. Is that the new coach bump? Is that as good as you can expect with this group? 500 hockey. Bruce Boudreau spent most of his time this season chasing 500 hockey, and we knew ultimately that 500 didn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So, credit to the Canucks. They don't go quietly, not the best of starts in Nashville and St. Louis, although territorially. I mean, the Canucks deserved to win that game going away, and give Jordan Binnington some credit. He was the one Blue that did seem to want to play last night. He dug in, but ultimately Elias Pettersson dug in a little bit more. Pretty special stuff, particularly in overtime, but the saucer pass to Miller on the 2-on-1, and then, of course, Pettersson again. He's the guy that delivers the puck to Kuzmenko for the tying goal. So quite a night for Elias Pettersson. The game winner and 2 primary assists. He's up to 75 points. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but it was the ultimate tribute to Daniel and Henrik. Pettersson played 22 minutes and 33 seconds in that win last night over the Blues.
And as you've noted, closing in on a 100-point season. Yeah. We had a listener yesterday, Jeff, say, hot take, he's going to break Hank's 112-point club record, which, boy, that is quite a far bridge. But if he gets hot enough, he may flirt with it. Answer me the Bodog poll question. Is he a superstar?
He's a superstar in the making. And I guess, it depends how you define the word, obviously. But since Christmas, 2 players in the National Hockey League have more points than he does. Connor McDavid and Matthew Tkachuk. Otherwise, Elias Pettersson is 3rd. And that's 25 games. Like, that's not a 10-game run where, he just absolutely got on a heater or he played a bunch of bad teams. 25 games includes that gauntlet that ultimately led to the dismissal of Bruce Boudreau. So he has seen some good opponents in there, and he's been really, really good. Since Christmas, 13 goals, 21 assists, 34 points in 25 games. And what's interesting to me is, if you take the 75 points and you take that pace from Christmas until now, that's 25 games. They've got 24 to go. If he's just on that pace, I'm not asking him to do any more than he's done over these 25 games, and they've got a bunch of bottom feeders ahead and some that haven't even, pulled the trigger on trades yet. Like, some of those bad teams are going to get worse. If he just stays on the pace that he's been on since Christmas, 108 points is where he is projected to finish. Henrik has the franchise record of 112, so it's not out of the question. If he has he's already got 3 5-point nights. And the other thing, too, is, since Christmas, only 5 power play points, which is kind of shocking, really, when you think about it. But again, this guy is a dealer at even strength. We know that. But if he can get a power play bump somewhere along the line, I don't think it's out of the question that he can take a run at the franchise record. Certainly 100 points now. He needs 25 points in his final 24 games. And look, this is way down on his priority list, but he's playing for a new contract. He knows it. We know that he's a pretty shrewd operator. But you also know that on some level, deep down, Elias Pettersson has to know that JT Miller finished with 99 last year, and he wants to top that. He does. Come on.
I hadn't thought of that at all, but I'm on board with you. I'm on board. 100 points. Somebody even suggested yesterday in our inbox, does an electric finish challenge Henrik Sedin at 112?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, the Canucks have 600-point seasons in franchise history, and it's 4 guys. Pavel had 2 of them. McGillney, Naslund, Daniel, and Henrik's at the top of the chain with 112. Pavel had 2 100-point seasons. One of them was 83 games. I was looking at that earlier. So obviously that was a different era. And Elias Pettersson's missed 2 games already. So the most he can play is 80 this season. Now, I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he takes a real run at this. Because there isn't a whole lot to watch. And I know people are pulling for them to lose hockey games. But this guy is so talented that you don't think for a second that Elias Pettersson is single-handedly going to repeat last night's performance a few more times along the way. It's bound to happen. And again, especially if he digs in and is shooting for some personal marks here. And I have no issues if he is. These kinds of seasons don't come around every year, although for him, let's hope that it's the start of, a run of these types of years. Whatever the case, I think they're going to have to get the old blotter out and rewrite some of the franchise record book, because I do think he'll get to 100. And then it's from there, how much gravy can he pour on the season, and can he really take a run at 112? That feels like a little bit of a stretch, but as I said, I mean, he's sort of projected in that 106 to 108 range, so just needs a couple of big nights along the way, and with 24 games to go, I think it stands to reason that there will be a few more big nights for Elias Pettersson.
Soft games in the middle of March, too, for him to pile some of those points up. The next 4 are tough for the Canucks. They're all really good teams. But, so the middle of March, chance to maybe take on the Coyotes and Ducks and pile up some points. We'll see.
And if we're talking club records, Jeff, Kuzmenko is 7 away from Pavel's rookie record for goals in a year, goals in a first season at 34. Going to get that, isn't he?
Yes, of course, we have to be careful with the terminology. It's a first-year player in his case, not a rookie, which is unfortunate. But you're right, for guys that have not played for the Vancouver Canucks before, 34, absolutely. I mean, by this time next week, the way that he is going, he's got 5 goals in his last 4. He scored 14 goals in his last 28 hockey games. So he's feeling it. And again, there's the element of the fan base that doesn't want them to win again. Too bad. They're going to. Kuzmenko, I don't think, is fully on board with the overall objectives of those that want the bottom to fall out. But it is a shame. Like when you saw how excited he was again last night, and we know that part of Kuzmenko's story is these celebrations and that massive smile. It would have been pretty cool to see him do what he did either in Nashville or St. Louis or both on home ice, just to sort of get that visceral reaction from the fan base that can embrace this player and this team. And I saw the NHL posted an incredible stat. He's just the 4th guy all time to score back-to-back tying goals in the final minute of regulation in consecutive games. And it's an incredible list. Phil Esposito was the first. Mikko Makela. Remember Mikko Makela of the Islanders?
Yes, right.
And nobody had done it since Sean McEachern of Ottawa in 1998. So we're looking at a 25-year gap since somebody had tied games in the final minute of regulation on back-to-back nights. So add Andrei Kuzmenko to a pretty eclectic list of players, but he's found his way into the annals of hockey history.
Hey, if they ever make the playoffs, Kuzmenko and Beauvillier, these are big-time goal scorers. I mean, big-time in terms of the time of the game scorers. Of course, we're not going to see that this spring. Aatu Räty, you way overshot the over-under JPat on the ice time.
Yeah,
7.5 minutes, not 11.5. But what did you make of him in the brief moments we saw him on the ice for his Canucks debut?
Yeah, not much. Didn't see a whole lot. I gave him an incomplete grade on Rink Wide last night. And it's because of the ice time. He played 2 minutes. Actually didn't even get to 2 minutes in the third period when they're down and chasing. And there was some special teams time. Wins 2 of his 3 faceoffs. The broadcast showed that he does this thing where he turns his stick over and takes faceoffs left-handed and right-handed with the same stick, which is kind of unique. But if that's my grand takeaway from the night, it tells you that there wasn't a whole lot there. I will say this, though, and again, we go through this, and it's always that same sort of caveat that the players aren't going to tank. But I am wondering a little bit about Rick Tocchet and his usage of players. I mean, back-to-back nights for Quinn Hughes, now up over 30 minutes, and I get they were thin on the back end. I understand that, and the coach is playing to win, but at the same time, to what end? Like, why is Aatu Räty up in the NHL and only playing 7 minutes? Like, can you not find an additional 4 or 5 minutes along the way for him? Does Elias Pettersson need to play 22-33? And you see what happens when he does, that he takes these games over by himself. So the coach, more than anybody, can control sort of the outcome. Could they have come back if Aatu Räty and Vasily Podkolzin and Jack Studnicka and Dakota Joshua got more ice time? Probably not, but there's no way of knowing because those guys sat and watched, although I did think it was interesting that Studnicka and Joshua led the team in penalty killing ice time last night, and look at that, the Canucks were a perfect 3 for 3, so maybe we are seeing a changing of the guards when it comes to penalty killers and some of the guys that Rick Tocchet is going to use in that role. But look, Bruce Boudreau was publicly shamed by both Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin for not playing some of these young guys, and that was one of the things that was going to change with the coaching change, and now the top-end guys are playing more than ever, and it's supposed to be about the process, and how can you know what the process is if the young guys can't play? So we knew that it wasn't ever Bruce Boudreau. They just wanted their own guy in there, but their guy seems to be playing awfully hard to win these hockey games, and if it's supposed to be about the process, then I need at some point to see some of these younger players get more of an opportunity.
Well, trying hard to win, albeit granted more this week than when he started. But as you noted, Jeff, 5-2 in the 12 games he coached. So, you're still a mediocre hockey club. Artur Silovs, he wasn't all that busy. We were joking. Rare is the day when the other goalie is under fire, and the Canucks guy has an easier night. But 20 saves on 22 shots. He's 2-1. What did you make of the rookie tender?
Yeah, I mean, he's giving them credible NHL goaltending, which is something that they haven't had since Christmas. And that is part of the storyline here, that they're getting results now, and he's a part of it. You're right, he wasn't busy in the first 60 minutes of action, but in overtime, he actually had to and did make the better of the saves. And you think of the chances that the St. Louis Blues had. Colton Parayko pulled away from Connor Garland and kind of went end-to-end and had a pretty good chance. Robert Thomas walks out of the corner, and I thought he had waited long enough, but Silovs was able to make the stop there. And then was it Brandon Saad, I think, that had a one-timer, and Silovs had to get across the net and make a nice stop too. So when called upon, when the chips were down in overtime, and he looks comfortable. Like, the stage doesn't look too big for him, and I wonder if he has now drawn the assignment of the Boston Bruins in his 4th National Hockey League game, or do you protect the young kid and throw Delia to the wolves, literally? But look, they play Boston, they play Dallas, they play Toronto, 3 of their next 4 games. And, Thatcher Demko, they said he needs more practice time. Well, they're getting a practice here on Friday, but then they play an early game Saturday. Sunday is a travel day. They're on the road back down to Dallas. They play on Monday, so there aren't going to be many practices here for Thatcher Demko. So I think we're still looking at probably a week before Thatcher Demko gets the green light and is back between the pipes in game action. So I would have to think that Silovs will get a couple of these games just based on the fact that he's playing. He gives the team some stability in there, and doing it at the age of 21, 3 years removed from his draft. Like, it's pretty incredible stuff that he now has 2 NHL victories to his credit. So good on him. And, if they play him against the Bruins, like, what an opportunity for him. Yeah, it's daunting, but, like, this is the learning curve. This is the NHL. So I kind of feel like he's going to get a shot to go right back in there against the best team in hockey.
Dallas scores 30 to 40 goals less than the other 2 teams you mentioned there. I wonder if that's the safety net that it's still a good team. You probably still lose the game, but you don't risk ventilation as much as you do with Boston and Toronto. But he's up. The risk with playing Colin Delia these days is ventilation. You don't necessarily know what you're getting with Colin Delia, and I don't think they want embarrassment on home ice.
Right. But I think the potential is there either way. The Bruins are that good, and I think they're going to add their 2 newest players. I would assume that they'll inject both Orlov and Hathaway. I haven't seen that officially, but, the best team in hockey getting better, and I like that trade for the Boston Bruins. I think Orlov is just going to step in and help that blue line that's incredibly deep already, and Hathaway is just a menace. Like, he's a perfect fit for the Boston Bruins, and gives them, a little bit more edge and some grit, and, so there's a team that, probably didn't have to go out and make massive deals ahead of the deadline, but I think they just wanted to raise the bar and, serve notice across the league that they are absolutely in it to win it this year. And I know the Vancouver hockey fans don't want to hear that, but at some point, we all have to turn the page. 2011 is in the past now. The Bruins have charted their own course. Obviously, the Canucks have charted theirs too since then. But this Boston team, I see somewhere that they're on pace for 63 victories. 63 victories. It's incredible, the season that they're having.
I mean, good thing the Canucks won Game 8 because, Game 40 through 57 has been decidedly Bruins here. And as for the starter tomorrow night, so long as ownership isn't making the decision, you go Silovs. You know what Colin Delia is. Let's see how the kid does. Put him in the hottest water you got in the NHL and see if he can sink or hopefully swim.
Incidentally, third worst home record in the league right now, the Vancouver Canucks. Only Anaheim and San Jose.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because this has been for far too long now, but they have more road wins than they do at home. And again, the paying customer just getting hosed here year after year after year in Vancouver. And that's why I said, wins like last night or even the comeback in Nashville, it fell short. Save those for the home games because I do think that, most of the people that are buying tickets and going, they want to be entertained. And there was entertainment in that Nashville game. Ultimately, they fell short. And I suppose in the third period last night, Elias Pettersson was worth the price of admission. 10 shots on goal, 17 individual shooting attempts for Elias Pettersson. So, yeah, save those for the home games. And, if you're going to go mildly and lose 5-1 like they've done so many times at Rogers Arena, save those for the road.
Jeff, lastly, because Rink Wide Vancouver is asking it on Twitter, Kasperi Kapanen on waivers, do you go there?
I don't. A winger with term. They got enough of those. Look, I'd let the Penguins sort of figure this one out if they want to buy him out in the offseason, and then he's available, at low cost and with the ties between the front office here and that player, maybe. But I certainly wouldn't give up assets. I guess if the Penguins were willing to part with an asset to get that contract off their books, that's a different story. But I don't get the feeling that that's, they're putting him on waivers here or they're probably ready to demote him. But with a year to go on a contract, I wonder if he's a buyout candidate in Pittsburgh. So let's let that play out. But in the here and now, just straight up, I wouldn't take him and his contract on just because I think the Canucks have enough of those types of players in those situations that are paid too much, underperforming. And I just don't feel like he's the kind of player that this hockey club needs in the here and now.
Yeah, I'm with you, although, boy, they could use his skating. Guys who can skate like that is something they're still light on. Jeff, marvelous stuff. Thank you for this. We'll be listening to Rink Wide tomorrow, and we'll catch up on Monday, my friend.
Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. We'll talk to you on Monday.